All right, friends, welcome into a special Sons of UCF edition. I'm Adam. With me is Eric Lopez. You normally see the two of us together on something called Around the Kingdom. Holiday scheduling has gotten kind of out of whack, so Elo and I are going solo tonight, but we're not alone because here's the thing about Elo and I, both big hoops fans. We love talking hoops. We love thinking about hoops, and we're in luck because right now UCF's men's teams, Elo, playing pretty well right now, and so we thought maybe we should talk some hoops. We got a special guest coming up in a second, Elo, but let's orient the audience. If you're listening to this, if it's before January 3rd, your UCF Knights are now 10-1, Elo, finish up non-conference play with one loss to Vanderbilt.
11-1 after the win.
Sorry, 11-1.
11-1. No shortchange Johnny there.
What do you make of this roster, this team so far, Elo? Are you surprised at 11-1 for your UCF basketball Knights?
I am a little surprised just in the way it's done it. This is for those, and I wrote about this on blackandgoldbannerhead.com recently. This is on track to be the best, not only offense in the Johnny Dawkins era, but it's on track to be the best UCF offense ever. They're averaging over 87.5 points a game as a team. They have scored over 80 points in 11 of the 12 games. The one game they didn't score 80 points was the Pittsburgh game where they scored 77, Adam. Remember the days where we're like, man, can they just get to 60, maybe get to 65, 70? No, this team has been able to score the ball much more a team passing first. They're among the nation's best in assists. Themis Folks has been a big part of that. So I think it surprised me how well this team has played offensively. They're much more efficient. That's something I talked to Johnny Dawkins about. You know, I've been around them. Obviously, I filled in a game earlier this year and things like that. And Johnny's talked about this as kind of the second year of this, changing of the offense, Adam, which you have talked about at length at all the previous shows about this new system offensively, where more pace, more efficiency. They're shooting from the three. They're shooting around 38% from three, but they're scoring at a high efficiency rate and they're getting more possession. It's been working to this point. That's been the big highlight for them at this 11-1 start.
Well, I think the depth of this team, Elo, is another plus, right? You've got multiple guys who can score, who can get buckets when you need to. You know, how often do you see a player like a Riley Kugel, who in many iterations is probably a player other teams are game planning for, put up a 0 in the score sheet, and UCF still scores 100-plus points to win a game? It's probably been a long time since we've seen a Knights team offensively that has that kind of firepower and can be, multiple in different areas as well, Elo. But you and I are basketball novices compared to our good friend Ben Hazel, who's kind enough to join us here as always. You see Ben usually on Thursdays with the Sons of UCF Live. You may see him on ESPN Plus broadcast. You may know him as a former UCF basketball coach and a former college basketball player with Princeton. Ben knows his hoops and always kind with his time. Ben, first off, thanks for hopping in, dude. Happy holidays to you and yours, man. How are things with you?
Merry Christmas, fellas. Appreciate you having me. You know, it's always a pleasure when I get to chop it up with you cool kids.
Well, it's even better when UCF has 11 wins and 1 loss, Ben. So let me start with this first question. What's the biggest reason in your view that UCF is sitting here right now at 11-1?
I think the main thing is we don't have a really selfish bunch, right? Like they're really unselfish. And I think that could be a little bit of nobody's necessarily, believes in their skill enough to just dribble the air out and try to chuck shots up. So I think it's just made for them playing more together. And I think, Eric, you talked a little bit about it, the offensive efficiency. That's just because guys, I think, are just sharing the ball a little bit more than we've seen in the past.
It's 2025, Ben. College athletics are crazy as it is. UCF brings in basically a brand new roster again. Always hard to figure out how these teams will gel together, how a unit all kind of clicks and fits together. What surprised you about this team as you've seen them kind of take shape here over the first 12 games?
We talked about the togetherness, right? Like they don't know anything about each other, but they're still kind of seeming pretty together. Nobody's really been selfish as like, hey, I'm not really trying to get this guy the ball. Guys are not coming in off the bench as selfish as we've seen in the past. I think that's been probably the most, refreshing part of this team. I mean, you said it, coming out of this non-conference with just 1 loss. I don't think anybody necessarily expected that. We'll see kind of the lessons learned are transferring over when we come into conference, because we know the competition and the intensity is only going to go up tenfold relative to what we've seen.
Ben, you were at the FAU game. You were one of the few that were able to watch the game because it was not broadcasted. But It was interesting. They fell behind by 14 early in the first half. You're thinking, I wonder, past UCF teams maybe start chucking the three like last year's team and maybe shoots themselves out of the game or whatever. But they don't lose. They don't get phased. That's one thing I talked to Johnny about it because they've run into this. Quinnipiac, for example, had the lead over them. They seem to adjust and they don't seem to get phased. What's been your thoughts on them of being, on the one hand, I know Johnny's frustrated because it feels he hasn't played a complete 40-minute game on the defensive side very closely, but they don't get phased when things go wrong. They just stick to their plan or make some tweaks and then able to bounce back from that. What did you see in this FAU win? Because that's been, in a way, that was kind of a part of the story that's been so far through the first 12 games.
Yeah, they're figuring out how to win, which you got to love, right? Like, no matter how ugly it is, wins are hard to come by. So you got to love that these guys are responding in the right way. But, on the other side, from the Coach Dawkins perspective, the adjustments are things that if we just had the right mindset starting the game, we wouldn't have had this issue. Main thing is always defensively, right? Like what you saw, of course, what nobody saw, but what happened out there is that guys started to pick up, right? Like they started to notice, hey, we can't just sit back and let them run their offense. They started to pick up. They started to pressure them. That started to force them to make turnovers. Some of those guys that were making it early weren't necessarily making it against the pressure. But those are the small things that, the really, really good teams in our conference know prior to the game. And they come out and do that, get teams out of there in the first 10 minutes of games. You see Houston just take people's soul in the first 10 minutes. And then, you could just see it, teams just giving up like, hey, we can't, it's really hard to score. So that's what Coach Dawkins wants from our guys. And he wants them to make those adjustments a little quicker. But you got to love that they are responding with, competing and playing harder instead of just saying, hey, it's me time. I'm going to carry us back like we've seen sometimes.
Themis Folks, kind of a throwback in a way in that he's a pass-first point guard, the traditional point guard. As much we all love Darius Johnson, spoiler, I have obviously a quarter century basketball, UCF basketball coming out on Black and Gold Ben Red. Darius Johnson is on that team. So is BJ Taylor, but I always considered those two, Ben, as more of guys that kind of not necessarily pass first guys. It depended on the situation. They might shoot first more, especially Darius, look for his shot more. Whereas Themis is looking to pass first and set the offense. And I thought he set the tone, but he's also somebody that's able to drive to the basket and get his shot, and that's something Johnny has talked to about, being that picking your spots and being aggressive. What have you seen from him? Because he has been a pleasant watch out of the point guard position, and I get a sense there's a part of Johnny that I think is enjoying coaching Themis folks. Not that he didn't enjoy the others, but I feel like this is more of the Johnny Dawkins point guard that he likes.
Well, 100%. I mean, it's a little bit of a change of pace. He is the main reason why we're seeing the consistency on the offensive and defensive end, right? It's because his play is relatively consistent, whether he's making shots or not. So I have to give him his flowers on that. Like, he has been a really consistent piece and is a big reason why the offense has looked the way that it has, and even the defense. But with him being pass first, that is why I think the unselfishness has stayed. Right. You do see some of those moments where you'll see a Jordan Burks kind of get into shooting these step back threes, and you'll see, Riley get into those little modes where he just kind of wants to bully ball and get to the basket because he hasn't necessarily gotten a shot. But Themis has been the kind of equalizer of all of that. And I think he's done a great job. And all we're seeing is his decision-making process is getting better and better over time. So we're seeing some teams not guard him. Right. And that sometimes would throw us off offensively. But he's learning and picking up quickly, like, hey, I might have to knock down this three-pointer today. I might have to make a few of those before I can get back to passing. So I think that's why Coach Dawkins is, having a lot of fun with the Themis, because he has a lot of influence on the maturation of Themis, and his decision-making process is the main thing.
Ben, let's talk about Riley Kugel, a player I know you know really well. Obviously, started off the season pretty hot, right? Was probably the most consistent scorer early on. He's had a couple of interesting games, 2 games in the last stretch where he didn't score any points, which for a scorer of Riley's kind of mentality is certainly interesting. What are you kind of seeing on the ups and downs with Riley in terms of the best you've seen, and then some of the performances that we've seen kind of the latter half of non-conference?
it's a little bit of a reversion back to the old Riley, right? So this was just basically what's kind of plagued him throughout his career, is just trying to be consistent and remain consistent has always been the biggest challenge for him. But probably the number one issue with Riley right now is that his offense is tied to his defense, and his defense and his commitment on the defensive end is at no level of what it needs to be, especially at the role that he plays for us, right? Like when I was on the air and I almost had trouble not going too hard, where I'm saying they are literally picking on Riley. As our leading scorer, there should never be a moment where another team, especially a Quinnipiac, is ISOing you, where the entire play is you're guarding a guy, you're standing on the basket, and he just pops to the wing. And that is the play. That should never be an option for any team ever. And I don't think he's picking up on some of those small things where teams are, and when we get in conference, it's only going to get worse. So hopefully he can kind of separate the two and still give consistent effort on the defensive end, because the offensive side, he's talented, right? Like as long as his motor is going, he will see production offensively. He just got to notice, like, hey, as long as I give consistent effort and I get caught up in the competition, that's when I will always be at my best.
I know effort is something that maybe isn't coachable, but if you're Johnny Dawkins and Steph, how do you fix that? How do you course correct that as you look forward to your conference play with Riley's defense?
A ton of film, right? Like a ton of things that even in the game that he's probably not noticing, right? Like he probably didn't even notice that they ran an ISO on him 3 times in a row against Quinnipiac. You know, some of those small things, film is a big thing, but then just constantly challenging them and really pointing out, like, hey, when you get lost in the fight, you are one of the best players and could be one of the best players in this conference, let alone the country, if you can just kind of buy into that next play mentality, which are all cliches. But I think it is for him really, really true.
Let's talk about what's fascinating. I've talked to Coach Dawkins about this. You got John Bull, who had a double-double in the win over FAU, maybe his best offensive game, overall game so far as a night. He's only been playing basketball for 5 years. I've talked to him about it. It's been unique to know him. Jeremy Fomina, the transfer from Mississippi State. So those are your main bigs, really, that get the minutes. But Johnny also has a small lineup where he'll play Cambridge inside or Stillwell inside as a 5-go small ball. What's your thoughts on the front court, going big, going small? Do they have enough in the front court to compete in the Big 12, or is that still a question that you have?
It's still a question because of guys like JT Toppin, right? So it's all about the matchups. But, I mean, outside of him, you know, college basketball is not dominated by the center position, right? Like most centers in college and in the NBA are pick and roll guys. They are not 30 and 40-point guys that'll kill you that way. So I think we have the pieces if they can keep their motor and stay out of foul trouble, really understand positioning. We have more than enough pieces to be able to compete. The versatility in lineups is something that I know Coach Dawkins loves because JaMychal Stillwell is a monster. So he's a guy that you could just put on anybody. Same thing with Jordan Burks. If he stays locked in, the length and athleticism that we have is something that I think Coach Dawkins likes, but it's really just their understanding, communication. Like early in that FAU game, they were just literally screen and rolling us to death in the most kind of simple way, which was like, you know, when we start to see some of these Big 12 games, those will turn into lobs and the crowd, the roof will pop off. So again, non-conference is about lessons learned when you're in the Big 12. So hopefully they did get to learn those lessons. But, you know, a little bit is going to be getting hit on the head. That'll be the greatest teacher. And it's just basically the question will be, will we bounce back and respond immediately?
Well, and you bring that up. You know, we're at the end of 2025. If you ask me, the moment of the year in Suns Live 2025, I don't know, Adam, if you're doing awards, the end of the year awards, but the segment of the year was with Ben Hazel. And let's just say, Ben, your displeasure last season about their defense, where you kind of voiced your displeasure a little bit.
Yeah.
On the show, I think we all know the content, and rightfully so, by the way, right? Because I think we all agree if they played better defense last year, they're probably an NCAA tournament team. With that being said, Are you sold that this team is good enough defensively to have success in the Big 12? And it's so bizarre to say that about a Johnny Dawkins team. I think on a previous show Around the Kingdom, I think I mentioned this to Trace and Adam. I feel like Johnny Dawkins and Scott Frost have switched personalities, traded places, because this whole fall we spent time talking about Scott Frost having a good defense, but his offense is struggling. Now you got Johnny Dawkins, who is known for the defense, has this great offense, but is trying to figure out the identity of the defense to try to play 40 minutes. Are you sold on this, that this could be a good enough defense with the personnel that he has, or is that still a big question mark?
I will say they can make me a believer, but I'm not a believer just yet, right? Because, the Big 12's a gauntlet, right? Like that point guard position, you got Tamin Lipsey, Rob Wright. Then that 3 position, those are all great spots that we have a bunch of options that we could throw at people. AJ DeBansa, JT Toppin, all of those guys. Like, these are player of the year candidates, guys that can wreck the game and make you lose by themselves. And that's going to be our first challenge, right? Let alone the supporting cast and making sure that they're up to snuff and stepping in. So there's a lot of questions as far as the challenges to come. But I do think they have enough, right? Like, we have enough with the Big 12. It's not necessarily that you have to beat the number 1 and the number 2 seed to get into the NCAA tournament. It's just that you have to take care of business against a Cincinnati, against a Kansas State on the road, against a Oklahoma State who's a lot better than a lot of people even thought and even know, because I watched them play Texas A&M, and they literally smashed Texas A&M at home. So there's no easy games. I do think we have what it takes, to be able to impose that will, but there is still a lot of more buy-in that needs to happen, and just a little bit more smarts as far as understanding, how to go about executing.
But I talked about depth off the top. I think depth position, specifically at the wing position. It seems like UCF has 3 or 4 guys off the bench: Carmelo Pacheco, Chris Johnson, George Beal, even Chris Parker, who have gotten some run. How do you see Coach Dawkins kind of parsing out minutes between that wing guard group and that second unit as we get into Big 12 play?
Oh, I'll tell you how. Play good, you stay in. Play bad, you're coming out. That's the luxury of having multiple guys, and that's the luxury. The number one thing that Coach Dawkins loves is he wants guys to play it out. If you come in the game and you're a constant contributor, the other guys' minutes will go, especially if they're not playing well. And none of those guys have had that consistent stretch. Like, Chris Johnson's kind of coming in and like trying to figure it out, trying to jack a few shots. And it's like, that's not going to get you more minutes. So they got to really figure out and understand. First, it'll probably start defensively in our conference. If you're a guy that can come in and help us guard some of these guys, you'll play. And not trying to force it on the offensive end. That's the next piece. But they'll learn, because we've seen it, right? Your offense can turn into bad defense really quick, especially in our conference. So they're going to learn like how this stuff kind of goes hand in hand. I do think having them available to help is going to be huge, but we will all watch it in front of our eyes. Like, I think a lot of the guys in the rotations from a Coach Dawkins perspective isn't because he loves putting so many people in the game. It's because he's searching for an answer.
Ben, I'm curious, how does a player like Carmelo Pacheco fit in, right? Because every scouting report, every other team's going to have shooter next to his name, right? So when he's on the floor, you're going to have eyes on him. You're going to draw some defense to him. So he's going to space the floor a little bit for UCF. But you mentioned if it's not going in, A, that's not helpful. And B, I'm not calling him a liability on the defensive end, but I'm not saying he's a stout defender. How do you imagine Carmelo Pacheco is going to fit in to this, knowing that other teams are going to prepare for him as the top level shooter that he's proven to be in his career at Mount St. Mary's?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think everybody knows that. He knows that. It's no different than how he's been played probably his entire life, right? So I don't think any of that will change. Of course, there'll be a little more pressure on him having to make open shots, but his presence does help. Right, like it makes rotations a little slower. It makes switches a little tougher, things like that. So even him being out there is helpful. But yeah, the defensive end, like we're going to see it. The athleticism that these teams are bringing, the BYUs, the Iowa States, the Kansas, these are teams that don't let you off the hook. And I think we might have gotten away with a few games where, the talent isn't necessarily as high across the board, so we can get let off the hook in some of these situations. Whereas when we play these teams, I don't know if it'll be the case. Like Quinnipiac, we just put JaMychal Stillwell on their best player, and that's a wrap for him. I don't know if it'll be that simple once we get in the Big 12.
Well, and that's why if you're Johnny, you're hoping this depth and versatility that you have on the roster that might be the best depth and versatility he's had since he's been at UCF. The 9-10 guys are better than, say, a Kansas's top 5, top 6 guys, right? That's the goal in most nights in the Big 12 there. Let me ask you, with that in mind, which player has surprised you maybe the most through the first 12 games, either positive or whatever, and which player you think is a key guy to watch in Big 12 play that could be the difference?
So the person who surprised me the most is Themis, right? Like his level of play with not only his ability to pass, but he's still been scoring the ball. Like he's shooting the ball really well. His decision-making, you could see it just getting better and better. He even had, early on some bad turnovers, getting stuck in certain situations that used to drive me crazy. But you don't see it as much anymore. So you just see him getting more and more comfortable, but you're seeing the results follow, right? So he's been an extreme surprise. JaMychal Stillwell, he still shocked me with just his energy, his motor, his effort, his defensive prowess, right? Like that Quinnipiac game, he literally just wiped out their best player by himself. He was running through screens. So his versatility has been, extremely surprising. The person I want to watch most, though, is Jordan Burks. I know he's shown flashes like he can shoot the ball, but I think he needs to find a happy medium. And I think he can affect games more on the glass and on the defensive end than he has so far, right? Like when I watch him on defense, he can guard 1 through 5. His arms are so long. Like his length is it's a special. His arms are like, they almost look like they're dangling on the floor when he's just standing there. So I think he could do a lot more as far as affecting games. And I don't mean that purely just from catch and shoot. I think if he just picked his motor up a little bit, and he has moments where he does, but if he makes that more consistent, I think he's a guy that can, really solidify himself.
Well, they're going to have to solidify themselves. We get to the Big 12, Ben, which is the number 1 conference. That's not a superlative that we're just saying that because we're in the conference. They have proven it in the non-conference. They have crushed the SEC in head-to-head. I think it's 15-5 win-loss against the SEC. The metrics have them at number 1. And I'm blown away. You look at a lot of these NBA mock drafts, half the lottery are players that are in the Big 12. I'm going to read off some of them. Darren Peterson of Kansas, who's been dealing with hamstring issues. We may or may not see him opening night. The Bansa from BYU has been as hyped as it gets, was spectacular in that comeback over Clemson a few weeks back from 20. Kingston Fleming, who has really surprised a lot of people for Houston, was kind of an under-the-radar guy going to the year. He's playing himself into a lottery pick. Koa Pete of Arizona, who's under the under-19 team, maybe him and Toppin, the best 2 big men in college basketball. Arizona's a national title contender. They might be the best team right now going in. I haven't even brought up Toppin from Texas Tech with Christian Anderson, who's one of the best point guards in the sport. You got Yesofor from Baylor, who's a freshman. I can go on and on.
Is there good news coming, Elo? Is there any good news?
Hopefully, maybe the Heat get one of these players, Adam. I don't know if we have our pick or not, but your thoughts here, Ben, as I read off this historian. I haven't even brought up UCF faced Boozer in the exhibition, and he's the National Player of the Year front runner. Unbelievable gauntlet UCF's about to go to. But your thoughts on those players I just referenced, because UCF's probably going to see them all.
Yeah, no. First off, it's we've been begging for our to be in the Big 12, and this is, Kansas is like, it's a normal year. Like this is what we normally do. We play pros all year. So if you're a UCF, this is would make me look at every team that I've played and say, this isn't the teams I'm going to play. Let me make sure I'm staying locked in and trying to get better. And then 2, this is what you come to UCF for. 1, because your name's not on that list, but you can play yourself into having your name on that list because you are going to see each and every one of them. And this is young and old players. They're all on NBA draft draft boards, like you said. So, but the one thing that's really unique about it is this is across all positions, right? Like this, we're not just talking about a concentration of power forwards or wings. Like Taman Lipsey didn't make the list, but like he's another guy that you have to worry about, and they have a few wings, and like the rosters
Iowa
are
State
really
top
set,
5 team, yeah, top 5 Iowa State.
right? So like, and I forgot about Arizona, so that's a stretch of games for UCF that I'm a little worried about, and that's why this comes down to every year we say it, like how quickly you can bounce back, and just really how it goes is you can take a loss, and then guys can kind of start doing the, hey, I'm going to carry us and F this guy, and I don't want to mess with that guy. And that's where things can start to go awry. And that's what you want to make sure that guys stay together. So we've been able to weather the storm thus far and really get an A in our first non-conference. But where it really counts is when we play Arizona and Iowa State back-to-back after we come back from Kansas State, right? Like, it's those types of stretches that can, make or break you.
Ben, I have no idea if this is a dumb question or not, but I'll ask it anyway. Through 11 games, UCF shooting 40% from three. According to College Basketball Reference, it puts them 8th in the nation in three-point percentage. Is that good news or bad news?
It's neither. It's too early to tell, because with the transfer portal, right, we don't know if any of those teams we played are actually good besides Vanderbilt at this point, right? So, there's still a lot of season left, right? Like, there's a year that I always we had the opportunity when I was in college to play against UCF my freshman year. We played against UCF in the conference tournament. We ended up losing by 1. This was with Marcus Jordan and company, and they were ranked at the time. And they were 11-0, right? And they had beaten Florida on a neutral site and won the rest of the games. And after we left the game, like, we were like, we really should have won. Is how we felt. And we didn't necessarily think that UCF was going to be that great of a team. No offense. And then they lost like the next 7 games once the conference started. And that's what I mean. We don't know if the teams we beat are good, let alone ourselves at this point. I question Pitt at this point. I question if Pitt is actually, like a quality win as we see. So that's why I hope they're not, looking at it and saying, hey, we've, done something. It still remains to be seen. There's just way more to be done.
One more player I'm curious to get your perspective on is Devin Cambridge. Obviously, a guy who's got experience in the conference, dealt with injuries, now on this UCF team, getting some minutes, had a pretty good night the other day against FGCU. What kind of role do you see a veteran guy like a Devin Cambridge playing on this UCF team?
I think he's going to have moments, right? So in the Big 12, it's like the NCAA tournament. You're going to need one of these X Factor guys to really just do something that you typically don't see out of him. And I think he is one of those guys for us, right? Because he's really versatile. His athleticism is still, bar none. Like, he gets off the floor. He guards all 5. He's a smaller version of JaMychal Stillwell. So I like what he's been bringing. The one thing that I really like is that he's Big 12 ready, in the sense of he's seen it. He's been there. I think these moments, when things kind of start to go awry, I think he'll be able to come in and provide some sparks. But, we'll see how his jump shot translates. He's, starting to get more comfortable with it. But as the pressure mounts, we will see, if he can pull some of those out for us down the stretch, because that's when it's going to come. It's going to come in the second half late, and they're going to leave him open in a tight game. And hopefully, he's ready to step up and knock it down.
What do you consider a successful Big 12 season for UCF? The number 1 conference, 18 games. Joe Lunardi has them in as one of the last 4 in. A lot of speculation. Does 8 wins get you in? Does 9 wins get you in? 9-9. What's your kind of thoughts on all that?
I mean, honestly, right now, like, I do think this team does have what it takes to be in that conversation to try to get a bid in this NCAA tournament, right? And I think that should be the goal of every single person involved. And really, like they said, like, does 8-8, 9-8 get them in? I would say so. But that does mean some gritty wins are going to have to come in some probably ugly fashions, right? Like, with the teams that we play, we're lucky in the sense of we don't have any double ups with the top 5 teams in the country. So, the the schedule shakes out as good as it could be for us to get, those 8 or 9 wins and try to keep our name in the hat. But we'll know immediately, right? Like, we have the perfect mix of what the conference is like. We play a Kansas team that won't have Daryl Peterson because I think he shut it down for the year. So we'll see how that goes. But then we got some of those middle of the pack teams, your Oklahoma States, who are still trying to, put their names in the hat. So if we can separate ourselves from them, the Cincinnatis, the Kansas States, we will have a realistic shot. It's not even necessarily that we have to upset a Arizona or an Iowa State. It's really that we have to take care of home court and take care of, kind of some of those other teams.
Play box office with me. If Adam wants to take a drive 2 hours to catch a UCF home game, or if you provided him with a private plane to go to any UCF basketball road game this year, what games would you tell him you got to cover? You go to this blank game.
One game that I've been there, so it's unsung. Iowa State is crazy, I will say. Iowa State is, because there's nothing to do. So I would make sure, if you're saying, hey, I'm going to go and come right back, I would say go to Iowa State. If you want to, go hang out, I would say go with Old Faithful. We got to go to Houston.
I love Houston. That's road games are good. And then home games, which home game would you recommend this year? You got Arizona coming in for the first time.
It's got to be Arizona this year. Yeah, it's got to be Arizona. Like, they're extremely talented. The number 1 team in the country right now. Like, if they're number 1, that would just has to be the one.
All right, Adam, make your travel plans.
I'm working on it now. Ben, first 5 games you mentioned: Kansas, Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, Kansas State, Arizona. 2 of those on the road: Oklahoma State, Kansas State. What's a record that you would look for out of those 5 games? Because it sounds like you're saying that first stretch is going to tell us a lot about this team in the conference. Where do you want to see UCF after those first 5 games in conference record-wise?
I would love to see 2-5, 3-5. That would be a solid start to me. Something you could build on. I don't want to set it too high. I said 3-5, 3-2. Sorry, 2 or 3 or 3 and 2. I think that would be a solid start. That Oklahoma State game is one. That Oklahoma State, Kansas State, those 2 road games. If we're able to get one of those, and then we can take care of Cincinnati, even though they've been a big issue for us, I would say, okay, we have what we thought we had, right? There's still room to go, but I think that would kind of solidify a few things for me.
Well, I mentioned at the top, obviously, you spent a ton of time as a coach. You know the game better than anybody. So if I put you in the other team's colors, I put you on the other team's side, and I said, Ben, what's the scouting report to beat UCF? What in your mind are you concerned about? What are the things that you think can beat UCF if you're on the other sideline?
I think they're going to try to be extremely physical with us, because I know Jermichael Stillwell's a problem, but I don't think they're worried about the rest. Right. So I think they think they can pressure and speed us up. Because you see Riley have some moments where he's getting a little out of control. And then I think just basically on the offensive end, they're just going to try to pound us, especially inside. I think guys are going to screen and roll us to death and then just try to pound us on the glass, because that's just where we've seemed to have a little bit of trouble. I mean, we just haven't faced the same size and athleticism that we're going to face. And that's just the calling card of pretty much all the teams in our league, right? Like, even the ones that aren't as talented, they just really try to beat you up. So I think that's going to be the default for most teams. Like, they're going to try to kill us on the glass, and they're going to try to pressure us.
What's interesting is, I mentioned earlier, UCF's averaging 87.5 points a game, which is on pace to be the most ever in program history. Blow away the Dawkins era. Last year was the most explosive offense, 79.5, and top 50 offense in the country in score points per game. And yet, Ben, I was surprised to see that's only the 6th best in the Big 12. One of the storylines around the sport, I feel there's more offense in the game than we've seen over the last handful of years. Some people attribute that the portal has actually helped the product of basketball, because guys are now starting to stay longer in college basketball instead of just automatically bolting to the NBA, because they can make some money in college basketball. Like Toppin, for example, decided to stay at Texas Tech because they're paying him, depending what you believe, $3 to $4 million a year. What do you make of all this offense in college basketball? And do you buy the portal helping the product on the court?
I don't buy the portal helping the product on the court. I think the portal's done two things. Yes, it's allowed, more skilled players to be involved, but it's dumbed down everything else, right? Because you just don't have time. Like, how are you going to instill a defensive scheme? Like, how is Shaka Smart going to bring back the Havoc defense if I don't have a guy for more than, a year? So it's really caused things to be dumbed down, especially defensively, right? Like, and I think you see that. So that's why the offense is flourishing, right? Like, it's a lot more similar to what you would say when guys would critique, your AAU basketball games, where they're thinking you're just kind of rolling the balls out. Teams are just ball screening to death. The offenses aren't as intricate as they used to be just because you just don't have time, right? So I think the scoring also is up because of solid scheduling. That's also helpful. So when these guys are having games where they're not playing another top 10 team, they're putting up 100 and 115 points. But I do not want to take away from the fact that offensive production is up, right? Like, these guys are very efficient. They're very athletic. They're getting the ball up the court. But you'll see all of those averages come down once conference play starts.
I've never heard that, though. So you believe because guys are only here, new rosters, right? Like 10 to 12, you have a bunch of new faces, that coaches, it's easier to teach offense, takes more time defensively. And that's why, and Johnny's mentioned that these guys are still learning to play defense. So that's played a bigger role, you feel like, in more offense. We saw this Duke Texas Tech, one of the games of the year, where Duke blows a 17-point lead because Texas Tech has the firepower, and maybe Duke doesn't have their defensive principles there.
Right. And there's small things. Like, I even saw today, Chris Johnson, he's guarding a guy. He's guarding a big at the time. And, of course, whenever you're a guard guarding a big, 9 times out of 10, you're about to be switching to somebody else. You're a guard. You're going to switch. So he's hugging the guy and almost didn't switch on the interchange between his guy and, like, Themis. And it's like, these are just small little things that in this game, it's not going to make you pay. But those are also things that when you're with a unit, those are small things that you just kind of know, right? Like, you can kind of iron those things out. Everybody knows it. Everybody's a lot more on the same page. So I think that's also why groups like Houston, definitely stick out just from a basketball purist perspective, when you're like, hey, the fact that they're able to kind of implement things, continue them on with slightly changing rosters is very impressive.
Ben, this UCF team will go about 11 days between their last game at FAU and the conference opener at Kansas. From a practice perspective, from a preparation standpoint, what is Coach Dawkins and the staff doing over the next 11 days to get them prepared for Big 12 play?
I'll let you guys know, across the country, this is the worst time as a basketball player in your life. It is the worst because you get a few days off, but every coach is going to ramp it up something crazy when you get back, so you can't even really enjoy yourself. So it's going to be really intense. Like, they'll probably have an inter-squad scrimmage. They'll do a lot of competition. But the thing about it is it's just hard to replicate Big 12 play. So hopefully, the guys are understanding that everything's going to need to be ratcheted up. But, yes, right after the holidays, it is not Merry Christmas. It is, we're going to run, we're going to be watching film. We're going to try. Coach Dawkins is going to do everything in his power to keep the intensity up, just because he knows, once Kansas comes to town, it's going to be, and once that starts, it doesn't really stop.
All right. I need you to talk to Night Nation for a second, Ben. There's a segment of the fan base that says 10 straight wins. Look where we are. This team is great. Look what we're doing. There's a segment of the fan base that says that's all cute and all. Do it in Big 12 play, like we've seen this movie before. Yeah. What message do you have for UCF fans who are sitting here right now looking at a team with only one loss, but seeing the gauntlet of a schedule that's coming up here over the next couple of months?
I say we should all be encouraged. We should all be encouraged. I love what's going on, considering we haven't really done it like this before. But this is another chapter of the story, right? So we can pretty much act like it never happened. We can use it to justify our hope. But this is when we decide and find out whether it's real or not. You know, all the other stuff was relatively just fluff, right? Like, even if you're ranked, if you come into your conference and you do not look good and you don't take care of your business, all of that will be for nothing. So we have so much to do, and it starts literally on January 3rd. That is the day when it really ramps up for us. So we're in a great position. Couldn't be in a better one. Now it's really time to, prove our worth.
Is there a game you circled on the schedule where you're like, this is non-negotiable, this is a must-win, this is the game where it's going to show me something either good or bad?
I did, because I was mid-major. If I was at UCF, all of them would be circled. I hope every game is circled for these guys.
But just for you as an analyst, just for you as an observer, as somebody who's watching them, because you said you still have questions.
If you want to know, the first big test, Oklahoma State at Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
that is the one that I'm looking at. That's like, all right, this is the number one that'll really be our first true test to see really where we are. Of course, the Kansas game, like without Daryl Peterson, I know that's going to be hyped up. How they perform during that is a coin toss at this point. Relative to us winning and losing, Kansas is still really good. They got a lot of athletes. But that Oklahoma State game will be the one. Whether we win or lose, it'll be how we respond to the win or loss and how we take that on the road into a place that we might not think so highly of, but they beat Texas A&M by 20, what they didn't think too highly of going out there either. So, there's a lot of small tests with almost every single game in this conference. That's why I'm like, I hope they have them all circled. Because they're all extremely important for us.
I hope they do. All right, put on your basketball fan hat on here. Who's the one player or team you're looking forward to seeing them play against UCF that you might tell people about 10 years from now? Kind of like, that Duke tournament game with Zion and Taco. We still talk about that as this bigger than life game. I mentioned earlier all the big prospects that UCF's going to see. Who on Ben Hazel's personal basketball list are you looking forward to the most to see playing UCF?
BYU. I want to see AJ DeBansa, and that's because of the matchups that we have. I want to see what he looks like because that's our best on best, like Jordan Burks, Jermichael Stillwell, Chris Parker. If we get that far into it, John Riley, all of you guys can get a shot at your size and how he plays. So, I'm really excited to see, how the potential first number one pick handles that.
But I'm curious as we kind of wrap up here. Obviously, UCF had to put an entire new roster together. How would you grade kind of Coach Dawkins, his staff, his administration of this particular roster? We've seen him kind of have to rebuild and reload every year now. But how do you kind of grade out the job so far that you think he's done in getting both fits, both scheme, both talent? How do you think this roster kind of equates to what you've seen kind of UCF have to do in the past?
I think they've done a great job, actually, right? Like, I've been pleasantly surprised with how these guys have fit together. And I think, like we talked about, the defensive side, they have length. They have guys that can guard multiple positions. They've addressed the shooting issue, right? Like, we have multiple guys that can make open shots. So I think they've done a great job of piecing it together as a collective. But I just can't say it enough. This Big 12 is more than just, the pieces. It's a lot more heart in just execution, your mental, than most people even realize, right? Like, it's not necessarily about whether you're better or worse. It's like, hey, can you play your best after you just went to Iowa State and now you have to go to Colorado, right? So, and then come back home and play another really good team. It's really about staying engaged into the next game, next matchup, next play. And that will be the true test because, you see some Riley have his little lapses, getting texts and kind of losing his mind. Jordan Burks has had small moments. Chris Johnson has had small moments. And those are the small things that tend to get a little bit bigger when you play the competition and the schedule that we play.
Well, if there's a UCF basketball game, men's or women's, you might see Ben Hazel kind of working around. Ben, I know you're doing some stuff with ESPN Plus, doing some stuff with UCF. What's your schedule look like? Where can people find you? Where can they catch up with you? Where can we see Ben Hazel as we flip the calendar to 2026?
Well, hopefully covering a few more games. Hasn't been released officially just yet on what games I'm going to be able to do. That stuff is, changes day by day, but definitely will be on a few of the women's games calls. But, I'll be at the gym. I'll be at every single home game, Instagram, BAs12, all that stuff, Twitter. I'm a little more active these days because of the John Mackey Award stuff. So, I'm just doing, a lot of different stuff these days. So if you see me, definitely say what's up.
Well, part of it is you're in a depth chart that's got two superstar broadcasters and Michael O'Donnell and BJ Taylor doing national, man. So that's what Ben's talking about, Adam. I mean, Michael, all across the nation, you can see these guys doing national TV games, which speaks volumes of the great development we've had at UCF from a broadcasting basketball standpoint.
Oh man, like I know we haven't talked a lot about it, but like that, the production side, the access, just the teaching, the people, the color, play-by-play guys, they're all extremely helpful, which I've even learned, from other people and other places. Like it's not like that in other places. So the major, he's always giving tips, and Scott and Austin, like there's so much nuance to this thing. Eric, you too, like they're all extremely professional, extremely helpful. And yes, I am behind an all-star roster, but can't be upset about it because BJ is the whole reason I'm even included in the roster. So, it's that's just the way the cookie crumbles. I love it. It's been a ton of fun, and just trying to get better like those guys. Like they're looking at some big national contracts coming soon. So
hey, a tip to the cap to Adam, man. 2/3 of that Sons of Loves Day.
Yeah, well, and Sons, of course, we've already talked about that. Like we've gone through that one. Everybody knows I wouldn't even have gotten a chance if it wasn't for Sons and Adam and the crew. So, it's all in all, it's been amazing, honestly.
Way too much about me. More about you, Ben. Let me ask you, get you out of here in this. You, BJ Taylor, Mike O'Donnell playing a game of horse. Who wins?
Okay. I've been shooting a little bit recently. I think I might put my name at the top of that list. I do think I definitely do. BJ's been lifting, like he looks like an offensive lineman. So he's too strong to make enough shots. And Mike, I think, has just been too successful as a broadcaster. So I just think that is why I potentially could squeak it out.
What's your closeout shot? You got him down to one letter. What's the shot you're going to? You're going to get him out on.
Oh, I'll let you guys know the secret as long as you guys don't tell anybody. My horse trick that my dad used to do to beat me was, once it's me and you, we're starting right in front of the basket, and we're going to just make this into a game of who can make the most in a row. And we're just going to go around and just back up, and then we'll get to the 3-point line, and then we'll just keep shooting until you miss. Because
more of attrition. I like this. I like
an attrition battler. You need to toss this idea to Major. This should be like a halftime content show where you record. I mean, I'm sure there's a men's doubleheader where you're all hanging out. Like, how has this not been done? This is content right here. We're pitching content ideas.
Well, even better, Ben. I hate to put you in the spot because one of them's here, but some of the play-by-play guys, you got Austin, you got Scott, Elo, Mark Daniels. Who wins a horse battle between the play-by-play guys?
Now that's tough. I think I'm gonna go with Mark. I feel like Mark's a dark horse that just, he's just back there, like he walks around, he's a legend, and I think he just knows what he has in the bag. I think that's why
he keeps track of the box scores. You remember there was a couple years ago, there's a fiasco and he kept track of the box score. So I think you got to go. He's around the basket. He's around. He's in every gym.
That's a great point. Mark strikes me as the kind of guy that knows like the soft spots on the rim, like knows exactly where the backboard's a little bit forgiving, right? And just kind of knows where his angles. I feel like you might be right there.
But Austin is a big golfer too, so his touch might be pretty good.
Well, I definitely would take Austin in a golf if it's a golf scramble.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Austin Lyon.
I feel bad. I forgot Taylor Young in this entire experience as well.
DY! Oh, DY, my boy Taylor. You're right. Throw him in the horse game.
Well, it's still Ben Hazel for the win there. We've got that established, but Ben is a fantastic analyst, a fantastic friend of the program. Hopefully he'll come back with us on the Suns every Thursday. We'll try to pop Ben in to talk some hoops. But Ben, we appreciate you giving us some time here and kind of giving us a preview of what to expect at UCF. Hopefully you and yours have a fantastic holiday season, and we can't get more excited about Big 12 play, Ben. So we can't wait to talk some more hoops with you.
Yeah, me too. And don't worry, I got a few bow ties lined up just in case. Merry Christmas, everybody. Always good to see you guys.
Thanks,
Same to you, Ben.